When I was 8, I went to a friend's house to play his GameCube. It was there that he whipped out a game called Godzilla Destroy All Monsters. What was this? I thought. I only vaguely knew what Godzilla even was. Like, he's the big stomping lizard. He's got spikes on his back, he does the roar, shoots a laser beam or something. I didn't know much. But you know, on that day, with that game, I think I truly understood what it was all about. Godzilla! You could destroy cities, play as all these wacky guys. Is that a giant chicken? Who's that porcupine? A three-headed dragon? A giant bug? I played as the giant bug. Megalon enjoyers unite. My point here is that this game started me and my brother down a path. The path of being a Godzilla fan. Of being a kaiju fan in general, really. I didn't see every single Godzilla movie, but I knew the hits. The original, Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla v Mechagodzilla, Return of Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Godzilla 2000, and who could forget the artistic masterpiece of King Kong v Godzilla. What a cultural touchstone. Godzilla for my whole childhood was either this or this. Not this. We don't talk about this. So I cannot overstate how much teenage me freaked the fuck out when this teaser trailer hit. Oh my Godzilla. 2014. One of the most anticipated movies of my life. Somebody pinch me! And one of my most disappointing. Now I know that sounds harsh, but at the time, you see, I had expectations going into this film. Some were met, others weren't. Now as time has gone on, what this movie even meant has taken on a whole different thing than 2014 me could have even realized. A cinematic universe. A Monsterverse, if you will. All we knew back then was that Hollywood was attempting to make another American Godzilla movie. One that was actually Godzilla this time. And now it's gonna be 10 years. 10 years of the Monsterverse. As we've seen this last decade, making a cinematic universe is apparently hard as hell. Who really remains? DC died a horrific, embarrassing death. James Gunn's trying everything in his power to resuscitate a corpse. Breathe, darn you! Star Wars is pretty much a cinematic universe now that's been banished to streaming, held up by Baby Yoda merch. The Dark Universe... Dark Universe, and even the one who started it all, the MCU, the golden goose everyone's been trying to replicate. I think the goose just died. That thing's f***ing dead. After everyone else has pretty much careened off the track, the Monsterverse is still here, still chugging along, despite the movies not even really performing that well half the time. How does that happen? Who is still seeing these? It's me. I'm still seeing them. I am a big fan of the Monsterverse. It's flawed, it's not perfect, but my god does it try. It's like your local sports team that doesn't have the best record. Do they always make the best decisions? No. Are they still your team? Yes. I'm a kaiju fan. I like that these things even exist. So I'm gonna be rooting for it no matter what, in any direction it goes. Pink! And that direction now happens to be Pink Godzilla fighting the Monkey King at the center of the Earth. But as insane as these movies are gonna get, they ironically started with the exact opposite premise. A far more grounded, bleaker, and darker Godzilla flick. I mean literally darker. They f***ed up something on the digital version. You can't see anything. Like, people on YouTube went back and brightened the scenes because it was so bad. How did they f*** this up? In the late 2000s, Godzilla was dead. The franchise had just kind of ran out of steam at a certain point, even in Japan. After that came out, Toho released a few new movies to try to distance the property from Roland Emmerich as much as possible. The last movie, Godzilla Final Wars, came in third at the box office in Japan, getting absolutely obliterated by Howl's Moving Castle and The Incredibles. Final Wars was such a failure, Toho wouldn't make their own Godzilla until Shin came out a decade later. But hey, at least it gave us this. so it was all worth it. My point here is that while Transformers were all the rage, Godzilla was napping, and it'd take a collab with a non-Japanese studio to wake him back up. That's where Legendary Pictures and WB come in. Legendary just kind of has a knack for doing big monster movies, but was their taste good enough to tackle Godzilla? I mean, probably. These things weren't exactly high art most of the time, but the creative team and all involved still wanted their American Godzilla to be a respectable take on the monster. Also, they had to, because Toho needed to approve the final design. But what exactly would this new Godzilla even look like? He's always changing, always with the few traits we all expect. Big lizard, spikes on his back, does the roar, does the thing. But how that all comes together is tweaked with each film. Legendary wanted to do something similar, but also unique. For one, make him larger. In true American fashion, this Zilla would be the biggest of them all. A lot of ideas were tossed around. If you want to know more about the entire creative process for his design, check out this video by Warping Fist. At first they tried making him look exactly like the Toho Godzilla, but that didn't work. So they tried a more dinosaur look. Oh god, not again. They tried a lot. After mock-up and mock-up, the concept team and artists finally came up with this. There he is. I think modern audiences are pretty familiar with this design. Like, the Monsterverse Godzilla has kind of taken on a life of his own. Has his own unique personality. After so many of these movies, he kind of just appears now, and everyone goes, yep, that's Godzilla. He's very distinctly the Monsterverse Zilla. Had he been similar to Toho's version, it would have muddied the waters. Today, I love that we have two distinct Godzilla franchises going in wildly different directions. What the hell is going on at the Monsterverse? Alright, we got our Godzilla design down. Next up is release the trailers. Because the trailers for this movie still stick with me. There was such an energy to them, an ominous dread.
Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is gonna send us back to the Stone Age!
Bryan Cranston, front and center, right after Breaking Bad. These trailers made Godzilla my most anticipated movie of 2014. And man, did they lie. I was there opening night. The start of the movie was a bang. Bryan Cranston is a nuclear scientist in Japan, and some monster Fukushima's the place. He goes crazy for the next decade trying to figure out what happened. There was a mystery element going on. Why are they covering up Godzilla? I assumed it was Godzilla. Everyone did. Kaiju movies never really have good characters, so Bryan Cranston was already a standout in comparison to, like, anything else. His kid is Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah, that guy. He's just a generic army guy. He judges his dad for going crazy. I don't really like him that much. Good thing he isn't the main character. Oh, I'm sure he'll get patched up and get back to normal. Dude was the backbone of the whole marketing campaign to get butts in the seats. They knew what they were doing.
Stone Age!
There was even that Flash Gets cartoon with Walter White. And then he dies. I remember the moment of deflation, when sheer disappointment came over me. It wasn't just me. Other people in the audience too were like, what? No. A guy in the back went, oh, come on. And then we followed his boring ass son for the rest of the movie. Yippee. Ah, damn, you sure got me, movie. Didn't expect the story to take a nosedive. I walked out of it pretty disappointed. Now, some of you might think, how was he disappointed even with the monster fights? Well, Pacific Rim came out the year before. That's why I was disappointed. That movie spoiled us silly with pure kaiju action. And then all the action in Godzilla 2014 is just adjacent. There it is, Gary. There it is. Most of the movie is Godzilla showing up, doing a roar, and then it cuts away. They shut the door whenever it's getting good. Literally. Man, that city sure is destroyed. Wish I could've saw what caused it. After those emotional highs and lows, I just didn't watch this movie for 10 years. I saw the sequels in theaters, all of them, but I just never went back to the original. Until now. So what did I think of it? It's still not very good. I've talked about some bad movies, like Moonfall or Transformers Slop, and those are uniquely bad. Godzilla 2014, it's not that bad. It's just meh. You can have the most competently made movie with a talented director, along with CG that's honestly better than 90% of the films from today. But if a majority of the screen time is spent looking at Kick-Ass's face doing this, then what are we even doing here? I guess before I go on a rant, I should probably talk about the things I liked, huh? Gareth Edwards knows how to showcase scale. He has such a particular grounded style to these concepts that I absolutely adore. He did it again with his newest film, The Creator. Showing the monsters from a person's eye view really went a long way in showing that scale. I mean, hell, imagine this appears in your skyline. That'd be nuts. That was something very unique to Edwards, and it was good, to a certain extent. How about Godzilla himself? He's portrayed pretty perfectly for the most part. In terms of the morality of Godzilla's, if we're calling it that, this one's neutral good. He's technically the protagonist and is defeating the worst monster, but he cares very little for property damage.
Patrick, we saved the city!
Like the army's having a one-sided battle against him, and it's all because he wants to get past the bridge. Godzilla did nothing wrong, he's just defending his territory. You were the ones who built San Francisco there. Hell, I'm gonna say it, I like the Muto designs. They've grown on me. They're just these weird giant bugs that don't really have real eyes. It's like their eyes are just windows. What even is that? They also kind of remind me of Tyranids, and I'm a lot more into 40k than I was back then. The idea that they can create EMP blasts and shut down modern technology is such a good workaround the military just obliterating these things with American firepower. Now how they're implemented is a whole different story. Okay, the bad stuff. I have nothing against Aaron Taylor Johnson. I liked him in Bullet Train.
Okay.
But woof, his inclusion in this movie brought it way down. I just don't think he's built to be the serious military type they were aiming for. What we got was dull and boring, and it's not helped that his character is just a drastic step down compared to Bryan Cranston's intensity. That was the last time I mentioned him, I swear. But one thing that hasn't really helped it in retrospect is Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen playing husband and wife. So modern audiences saw these two play brother and sister in one film, and then in Godzilla,
Jesus Christ.
Talk about an unfortunate coincidence in casting. Their agents worked too hard that year, or not enough. Now, as much as I complain, it's not like EOD Lieutenant Ford Brody really mattered that much. He only exists to be a human anchor to sorta view the monster action when no one else can. Keyword sorta. In retrospect, it makes sense why they killed Bryan Cranston off so early in the movie. It's not like he would still be around for this, or that. I mean, what would you really do with him? Have him hang out with Ken Watanabe as he fangirls over the big lizard?
Let them fight.
Most Godzilla movies are just a collection of meetings. People talking about stuff, until the guys in rubber suits show up and have a smackdown. And then, the only thing anybody ever remembers is the smackdown. Go online and look up clips of Godzilla 2014. Same thing. In that sense, this film is carrying on a very noble tradition of having human characters that nobody gives a f*** about. Which is fine. I don't care about boring human characters, because usually what's at the end of the tunnel is absolutely worth it. You did your suffering, now here's whatever the fuck this is. Yet with Godzilla 2014, what monster action do we get? Fighting on the news, fighting about to happen, fighting in the clouds, and then finally we get moments of action that last like 5 minutes. And then it ends. The atomic breath reveal is still really cool. Man, people went nuts for that in the theater. And the way the Muto is killed is awesome as well. That thing's head comes off. I don't remember that. My biggest problem with this movie is that despite being called Godzilla, Godzilla really isn't in it a lot. This is actually the Muto movie, with guest star Godzilla. The Muto are the driving monsters of the entire plot. A Muto is what destroyed the nuclear plant and killed the main character's mom. A Muto is what drove Bryan Cranston insane because he knew the government was covering something up. A Muto. And then that Muto kills Bryan Cranston. The Mutos cause most of the destruction and conflict in the movie. They are the main priority for our protagonists to take out. And then Godzilla is there too, I guess. As cool as he is, his best scenes are just him showing up. Imagine a John Wick movie if Keanu Reeves showed up, whipped out his gun, and then they didn't show the fight. Remember when I said the trailers lied? Well, this is mainly where they did.
You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster.
The trailers implied that most of the scenes being shown were related to Godzilla in some way.
Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there.
But in the end, nope. Muto. Why lie in the trailers? Well, it's because the movie is pretty casual about the existence of Godzilla, actually. Like, there's initial concern and hesitation, sure. He wrecks up the place by accident, but none of our main characters are ever slightly concerned that Godzilla would ever do harm to people, unlike the Muto. Right off the bat, even in the first movie, he's kind of just seen as this protector. And just like Gypsy Danger, Godzilla's there to punch kaiju too. Legendary's new fancy OC kaiju. Ones they were really proud of. Now I think about it, that's probably why the Mutos on my first viewing rubbed me the wrong way. We, the audience, were expecting a plot focused on Godzilla, but instead it was a plot focused on these creatures that weren't even Toho monsters. Maybe it's because I'm a fanboy, but if these had been Toho monsters instead, I probably wouldn't have cared. Hey, wait a second. On second viewing though, it doesn't bother me as much now. If anything, it's just kind of funny. Like, without the cultural context or familiarity of Godzilla, this whole movie would be kind of confusing more than anything. Think of it if you went in completely blind. Why is Godzilla not a threat? Why does everyone seem to like him more than these bug things, even though both equally disregard human life? It's 'cause he's Godzilla, you dingus. He hasn't been a bad guy since the 1950s, and the reboot in the 80s, and 1998, but we don't talk about that. For full disclosure, I think this whole video review got a tad tainted because of a little film that just recently came out called Godzilla -1. Like, the Godzilla in that movie is a horrific asshole who just wants to fuck shit up. And going from that to this, it's like watching Jason brutally kill 15 teens in one movie and then be some defender of the lake. Nobody bats an eye. If they saw -1, they wouldn't be trusting Godzilla that much. All I'm saying. Godzilla 2014 is a movie that I can see having its fans. I've seen a lot of people prefer the far more grounded tone of the Edward style compared to the wackiness of the future Monsterverse stuff. And they're perfectly fine to feel that way. I like stupid shit, so I don't care. The later movies are gonna ditch that human perspective view of the monsters, which in my opinion, I like better because we get to see them more. For the Monsterverse, 2014 was the closest equivalent we'd get to the 50s classic. Mostly serious and grounded, before going batshit insane. Which is something also equally just as Godzilla. He is an incredibly versatile character who I just like seeing in things, and he's been in a lot of things to see. The real test of the Monsterverse, though, would be including someone that has rarely, if ever, had a series of his own. A certain monkey. That's right. Donkey Kong. Next film's gonna go bananas. God, sucked.